Welcome, everybody, to the Week 16 live show of the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, with the hopes that we hope we prevail in the rest of the 2021 fantasy football season. I am your host, Nick Giacobbe, and joining me is Nick Cap. Nick, for the first time, I am broadcasting live from Staten Island, New York, place where I grew up. My audio is probably a little bit buffed up. My video is clearly not as crystal clear as it usually is. I don't have my camera. I just have my computer and my headset, but we're recording live. You are going to the Jets game today. It is Week 16. It is the semifinals of the fantasy football playoffs. How you feeling this morning, Nick?
I'd feel a lot better if I had more than one team going this week, but it is what it is. It's fantasy football. You never know what's going to happen, but we're here to give you the best likelihood to win. So make sure you drop those questions in the chat.
I'm already a train wreck for this fantasy week. In my dynasty league, I had George Kittle. I'm in the playoffs in 2 out of 4 leagues, and then my third league with you, I'm still in the running for the points, so that's not looking good either. I had Kittle going in the 2 playoff matchups, so he didn't play too well. I had Debo in one of them, but he just kind of offset Kittle. I had Taylor in both of them. And here's the thing that I realized about Jonathan Taylor, and something that we have to speak about next season. Jonathan Taylor is touchdown reliant to have a good game because he doesn't catch any balls. He had 100, 300, 4, whatever he had. He had a good game last night without a touchdown. From a fantasy perspective, he only has 12, 13 fantasy points. That's not a great number from your first round pick and the running back one on the year. That's a down game for Jonathan Taylor. I'm putting him in the dud category for a show this week, no matter what. So we'll talk about that later this week, but Jonathan Taylor's a bit touchdown reliant. So I'm not really looking good at my fantasy leagues at the moment. I'm off to a rough start, but that's okay. I was actually off to a good start last week, and then I lost 2 out of 4 and almost lost 3 out of 4. So, but I hope you had a good Christmas, Nick. I had a pretty good Christmas with my family and my girlfriend's family wearing this Seahawks shirt that they got me. I don't have the Rams hat that they got me. That's back in Florida, but I'll probably wear that next week. But yeah, I had a great Christmas. So hopefully you had a good Christmas too. And hopefully all of you guys had a great Christmas as well if you do celebrate. If this is your first time listening, thank you so much for watching us. We're live every single Sunday. We're doing probably 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. Only have one more week left, which is kind of crazy. But we'll be live 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, most likely next weekend, unless the plans do change. Then we do one other show during the week. We'll see what day we drop it, whether it's Tuesday, Friday, probably going to be Friday. I'm home now, but plans kind of change. So our other show does drop. The audio version will be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, basically anywhere where you can find the podcast, you can find the Primetime Fantasy Podcast. If you're on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. It does go a long way. Thank you so much for that. If you'd rather watch and listen to the video version of the show, it's on our YouTube channel, Primetime Fantasy Podcast. So for this show, Nick, we're going to go through each game, talk about COVID news, talk about injury news, give you one player we like to start and one player that we think is going to be a dud. Let's start with the Los Angeles Chargers at the Houston Texans. Biggest news of the week. Running back 2 on the season, Austin Eckler, is out with COVID. He indicated on his podcast, I think earlier this week, I think he said on his podcast this week, go pick up Justin Jackson. I saw it in Matthew Berry's email on like Tuesday, and I picked up Justin Jackson in every league I could. My opponent in my dynasty league actually does have Eckler, so now he won't have Eckler, and I have Justin Jackson now going in place of Javonte Williams. It's a pretty big miss, and he tested positive twice now. He tested positive, I think, on Monday or Tuesday, then again today. So I believe he's in quarantine for 10 days since his first positive, so I think he could play next week. But he's definitely out for your semifinal, and that's a pretty big loss for your semifinal. Nick, how are you handling this if you're a fantasy manager with Eckler, and he's probably the guy that brought you to your semifinal?
I mean, you better pray you had his handcuff for Justin Jackson. I mean, this was the ideal matchup for Eckler to go off, and it's just not going to happen, and it's a big week to have him out. The only thing that's good is if you win without him, you're probably guaranteed to have him next week. So, I mean, that's a plus given all the COVID news, but still sucks. Still sucks. You better hope you have Justin Jackson. He's not my start of the week from this game, but that I'd play him.
He is my start of the week from this game. Justin Jackson's been productive with the Chargers before. Houston Texans have given up the 4th most fantasy points to running backs, so he's my start from this game for sure. We do have a question here. Deontay Johnson, Antonio. I think it's Antonio Brown. I'm guessing, right? That's Antonio. Yep. Antonio Brown, Tyler Lockett, or Jamar Chase. Pick 2. Have Wilson at quarterback. Oof. Is Antonio Brown definitely playing today?
Yes, he's in.
I would pick Antonio Brown for sure because Brady's going to feed him. I'm going to cut Deontay Johnson, which I really don't like. These are really good receivers. I'm going to play Chase because I just think his upside every week is just ridiculous. He had a down week last week, so I think he has an up week this week. I'm going to go Chase and Antonio Brown.
I'd go Deontay Johnson, Antonio Brown. I think Deontay gets such a big workload. I think they go down early to Kansas City, and they're just passing all game to get back in.
Alrighty. Going back to the Chargers game, more COVID news. Brandon Cooks is out. He didn't get cleared from the COVID list. Mike Williams is also out. He's out at least 10 days from yesterday. So I'm not telling you to drop Mike Williams because I guess something could change. I don't think anything's going to change. I don't think you're going to have Mike Williams for the rest of your fantasy playoffs. David Johnson with the quad is questionable, but not expected to play. And I believe the other Chargers wide receivers are out too, right? Joshua Palmer and I think Guyton's out too.
Guyton's out. Palmer's in.
Palmer's in. So I'll let you speak about Palmer then. I know he was your guy like 18 weeks ago.
Yeah, so prior to the season, there was a lot of word that Mike Williams, after this year, they really weren't going to use him at all. They were going to get rid of him because they liked the way that the rookie Joshua Palmer looked. They said his play style is extremely similar to Mike Williams, except he's much more durable. Williams, prior to this year, was always banged up and injured.
And probably much cheaper, too.
Yeah, exactly. Williams, after this monster year, he's going to earn his money. He might get picked back up. But the team already showed a ton of confidence in Joshua Palmer. He's gotten a lot more, though, workload. Not too much workload, but he's been on the field a lot more in recent weeks. And without Guyton there and without Allen there, usually you have a question mark for who's really going to step up there. But Joshua Palmer's just proven that he's going to be that guy that's going to see the field. There's a lot of plays where they played him over Guyton, and Guyton's been a pretty solid receiver without Williams or Allen this year. So I think Palmer, you could slot him right in up against the horrendous Houston secondary.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad play at all, especially if you need a flex spot, somebody you really don't trust. I think he's one that you can slot in there. I like that take a lot. Joe has a really great question about the Rams, but we're going to save that. Let's save that question for the Rams game.
Okay.
Trevor also jumped in here. Need some running back help. Mixon, Jacobs, Javonte Williams, Swift, PPR pick 2. I'm definitely gonna play Mixon.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna play Jacobs. I think the Denver defense is pretty good, so I'm not gonna play Jacobs. I want to put Swift in there for his talent if he plays. He's questionable. I forget if he practiced this. Did you see if he practiced this week? I just know he's questionable.
Who? Which one? Javonte or Swift?
Swift. I know Javonte practiced this week.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm going to go. I'll go with Swift if he's playing and Mixon. Those are your top, 2 or 3 round picks right there. So I just think you have to play them in your fantasy playoffs. I just think it's just, you have to, the talent's right there. So I'm going to go Mixon and Swift here.
He was limited in practice. Who do the Lions have this week?
The Falcons. Boyle's starting at quarterback too. So I think it's going to be very run heavy.
Yeah. I mean, I think Mixon's the clear lock. Jacobs is going to be
Javonte Williams to me. If Javonte Williams, if Melvin Gordon wasn't active, or you told me that Melvin Gordon only plays 3 snaps, I would put Javonte Williams as like my running back 2 or 3 on the week.
That's fair.
But I think he's touchdown reliant. I think he needs a touchdown. I think he's a better running back, but I think he's not going to get the volume. So that's why I can't really play Javonte Williams over some of these guys. I mean, this is an excellent fantasy football team. So I'll go with Mixon and Swift. I'm going Mixon and Swift.
I think it's a good problem to have, though. So I'm not too with you. I think you got some good, solid pieces there. There's one maybe not deliver, sure, but I think all of them. I mean, if you went projection wise, Mixon will be clearly at the top, and the rest of the 3 would be all very close. Yep. So it's a good problem to have.
From the Chargers game, I'm just benching everybody from Houston. I think you play everything from Los Angeles, and you bench everybody from Houston. I think that's a pretty simple one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Here's this Rams game. Los Angeles Rams at the Minnesota Vikings. Adam Thielen, the ankle injury, he's expected to play. I think he's only missed 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 3 weeks.
The projection was a lot higher for him. So.
Yeah, so but let's start there. Would you start Adam Thielen today?
Yes.
Would you? I mean, and my thing is like I don't know who Ramsey's going to be on. I usually flop whatever receiver Ramsey's
Ramsey
on.
will be on Justin Jefferson.
If Ramsey's going to be a Jefferson, that's real kicking the cojones to my team in our league because I need the points. I badly need the points, and I lost Chris Godwin, so that's going to be really rough.
I mean, they're going to put Jefferson in motion. Ramsey's not going to shadow him all game, but
if he's going to be on him,
yeah. I mean, Jefferson had like double-digit targets since Thielen's been out, so with him back in, it's going to hurt. But you know.
Let's answer this question for Joe. Can either of the Rams running backs be trusted, or should I pivot to a guy like Braxton Berrios or Ty Johnson? I would take the shot on one of the Rams running backs. I think I would play Henderson, but I know Sony Michel's snap count went up last week with Henderson. I think he might have out-snapped Henderson and was pretty close to it. So it seems like they're kind of going back to that running back by committee, but I know Henderson was also injured. So I could see us getting like a heavy dose of Henderson today if they want to pivot back to him. They could have just been, bringing Henderson back into the fold last week and not really wanting to give him the full load, knowing that they already have a playoff spot kind of locked up. So I'm going to say that you play Darrell Henderson out of these four.
So if I came to you on our Tuesday show and Nick's reading off who finished at the top, let's just say I said to you Sony Michel finishes as the RB7, wouldn't be surprised. If I said Darrell Henderson finishes as the RB7, you wouldn't be surprised. If I said Cam Akers finishes as the RB7, you wouldn't be surprised. And that literally means you have a 33% chance at getting who could potentially finish as a top 10 running back this week. I'm not trusting any of them. If you have them, pray you get to the championship and just play the guy that gets the clear workload there. I think there's way too many question marks. We had these question marks before the season. We didn't know if Cam Akers or Henderson was going to be the starter. So I think we all thought it was going to be Akers coming off an Achilles injury. I don't know if we see it.
Well, Akers didn't travel today, so it's definitely not Akers today. There's no Akers today.
I mean, still, I even with just Michelle
but would you trust Braxton Berrios or Ty Johnson?
No, I would no. You should have other options. I don't mind the Berrios play because Jets are missing Crowder, Davis, Elijah Moore, and Berrios will be the wide receiver one. But I really don't think you cannot.
So to answer this question, you can't trust them. You could play them. You can't trust them.
Exactly, that's fair.
That's the best way to answer this question is. You can't say, oh, I trust this guy to go out and get me 15. You could play him like you're rolling dice. You're playing 21. You're at 16. You're saying hit me again, hoping you get like 5.
Yeah.
It's kind of where you are right now. So who's one stud, dud, start, sit in this game, Nick? Let me hear what you
got. We're start, it's Odell. Odell's had really good usage. I think last week he kind of had I forget the numbers that he had.
Yeah, Odell had a wonderful game last week.
I don't know. He didn't have a great game.
Yes, he did. He had a wonderful game for all 3 of my fantasy teams where I needed points from him. He had a wonderful game, like 2 points.
Well, Seattle's secondary has actually been really good for fantasy purposes. Ugh. But guess who's secondary who has been the worst in the league? Minnesota. So go play Odell Beckham Jr. up against that horrendous.
I did have Odell when we recorded before the Seahawks game, and I did have Odell locked in as my lock of the week. So I'll also say play Odell.
I think Nick's gonna have an interesting question, or I have an interesting question for Nick because he has a big philosophy against the Rams. The running back's gonna struggle. Whoever's playing up against Aaron Donald, and whoever's going up against Ramsey's having a bad week. You got Alexander Madison this week going up against Aaron.
He's going to struggle. He needs a touchdown. He needs a touchdown to have double-digit fantasy points.
Okay.
I think he's still playing because the running back position is so thin. I need to see who else you have, but I think he's going to struggle. I think that Rams defense is pretty stout against those running backs.
Another stat that I have, which I just found out looking at the rankings, Minnesota's offense is number 1 against fantasy defenses. So
they're really good. I mean, they have a really, really talented offense.
Well, I mean, most of defensive points come off turnovers, and these guys always get massive yards between. Kirk always puts up a solid 200, 250, 300, and Dalvin Cook's like a locked-in near 100 a game, so that's 350 fantasy points. If you're on ESPN platforms, you cannot play the Rams defense this week.
I should also mention that Dalvin Cook is out due to COVID. Like, when I did the notes this morning, I only went back like 2 or 3 days on the Fantasy Life app. I totally forgot about that one, so that should be mentioned. Baltimore Ravens at Cincinnati Bengals. Lamar Jackson is out. Tyler Huntley is out.
Yep.
Josh Johnson is starting at quarterback for the Ravens. I flipped my pick this morning to Cincy -3.5. I mean, I'll just say this right now, like, I'm definitely benching Hollywood Brown. I'm really close to also benching Mark Andrews, but he just dropped like
Don't
40.
bench Mark Andrews.
I don't think you can bench him, but
Even with Huntley, he put up tight end 1 numbers on the week.
yeah.
He is a quarterback. He's not quarterback reliant. He's so talented, and Harbaugh's game plan will always use Mark Andrews. Mark
yeah,
Andrews.
I'm just really I'm really interested to see what
We'll
happens.
talk about him next year on whether him, Kittle, or Kelsey are the top 3.
Yeah, he'll be back.
Like,
Darren Waller's going to get
gonna be a crazy
slide out
conversation.
of that a little bit.
Yep.
And that's when I start. I mean, the Ravens haven't been great against wide receivers. I mean, they're like middle of the pack is 1, 7, 8, 9. He have the 11 most fantasy points to wide receivers. So I think Jamar Chase could have a big day today. I think he's had a little bit of a down week or two. I think Jamar Chase gets his flowers today.
I'm about to make or break someone's fantasy season. CJ Uzoma is my start of the week. They are horrendous against tight ends. Like Nick said, the back end. Well, he didn't really talk about it, but the back end for the Ravens is dinged up. It has been all year, and they're still middle of the pack against wide receivers. They're good against running backs, which means when you're good against the running back, you're usually bad against the tight end because of where you play your safeties. So for me, I think you could get away with a good week from Uzoma.
Chase, by the way, had 201 yards and a touchdown last time he faced the Ravens. So there you go. Detroit Lions against the Atlanta Falcons. DeAndre Swift is questionable. Jared Goff highly unlikely to play. Tim Boyle will get the start. I think Tim Boyle got a win with the. Did he get a win with the Lions, or he played well? I think he might have just played well.
I think he played well. I forget what game. Then.
So that Atlanta defense is terrible. So if you're like me and you're picking the spread, I'm not trusting the Falcons -9.5.
Well, we talked about one of these matchups, which are my clear 2 starts of the week. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown and Russell Gage, two of my biggest guys before the year.
Are you still in on Amon-Ra at this point?
Absolutely. His workload just too tremendous, and Atlanta's secondary is the worst in football. So I think Detroit, they have a fight. They always put up a fight. They're going to move the ball down the field. They're going to work those wide receivers. I think Amon-Ra's the play.
Chris, by the way,
my starts.
Chris, when we get to your question, when we talk about the Denver game, thank you. That's a very good question. I like that one. I like having questions like that to compare players. For me in this game, we have two. Well, the Lions actually been pretty good against wide receivers. The Falcons have not. The Falcons have surrendered the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So I'm with you on Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's really the only receiving target over there. Yeah, that's all I got for this game. Play Swift, play Amon-Ra St. Brown. You could get away with Russell Gage and Kyle Pitts.
Get ready for Cordell Patterson as well.
I just forget about him. Yeah, play Cordell Patterson for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville Jaguars at the New York Jets. My play this week is 100%. James Robinson. The Jets are giving up the most fantasy points to running backs. James Robinson was a top 5 fantasy running back last week. He's going to be a top 5 or 3 fantasy running back this week. Play James Robinson. That's all I got from this game. That's the only one that I'm playing from this game, and he's going to have a big day.
I agree. Let's move on to Tampa and never talk about it again.
Aren't you going to the game in like an hour?
Yeah, I'm going to the game.
I'm excited.
Baby. I'm excited because the Jets can win this one. I was so sad when I saw the injury report because all my guys have COVID.
I got to see our Knicks win yesterday. Go New York, go New York, go. There we go.
Yes, sir.
All right. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Carolina Panthers. Mike Evans is out with a hamstring injury. Playoff Lenny's out with a hamstring injury. DJ Moore has a hammy. He's expected to play. The Panthers quarterback situation is hilarious. Cam Newton's going to start, but apparently Darnold's going to play more, get more snaps, eventually take over the role. I don't really understand that, but whatever. You do you, Matt Rule. My star for this game is Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown's going to get fed a lot of footballs. He's going to get all the footballs from Tom Brady. And no Chris Godwin, obviously. No Mike Evans. Who else? There's Scotty Miller and then Tyler Johnson. I think those are the other 2 receivers. But I would just play Antonio Brown and Gronk. I'd play Gronk too.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think you can get away with a Tyler Johnson start as well.
I would also play Ronald Jones just because of the volume. I think the pure volume he gets is going to be massive.
I would also play Tampa's defense because all those quarterbacks we just talked about are incredibly turnover prone.
Yeah, I'd also be worried about DJ Moore. I said it last week, and he actually got a pretty good stat line. But the Bucks have been pretty tough against wide receivers, top 10 fantasy defense against the wide receivers. So I'd be a little worried about DJ Moore with the injury, the quarterback situation, the defense. It's a recipe for disaster. It's like you're cooking a meal and you just put in all the wrong salts. You bake it on the wrong level. It just comes out. It's terrible. It's terrible. New York Giants against the Philadelphia Eagles. Jake Fromm is starting, so I am starting the Philadelphia defense. They're my start of the week. The Giants have been horrendous. They can't cover spreads within 10 points. They can't pass. Saquon Barkley has been non-existent this year from a fantasy perspective. I'm not trusting anybody on the Giants. I would even consider benching Barkley this week.
I think there's one guy I do like on the Giants. It's not Barkley. It's Evan Engram. He's averaging a little over 5 targets a game since their bye week, and I think Jake Fromm's just going to have to be relying on him. On top of that, Philly's the worst defense in the league against the tight end position.
Yeah, Philly's been very tough against the run, by the way. On the Eagles side of the ball, who would I play? I think that Jalen Hurts is going to have a huge game against them. That might, and I think I'd start Miles Sanders too. The Giants have given up the 8th most fantasy points to running back, so I'd start Miles Sanders in this one.
On top of that, I think Dallas Goedert overtakes the tight end 5 this week and finishes as a top 5 tight end.
Yep. Buffalo Bills at the New England Patriots. Cole Beasley and Gabriel Davis out due to COVID. Ramondre Stevenson is out, I think, due to COVID. And Damian Harris is a little dinged up, but he's expected to play. I hate this game. I hate this game from a fantasy perspective. It's bad. I think I would play Stephon Diggs. I would play Stephon Diggs, I should say. I would pivot off of Josh Allen if he could.
Interesting.
I don't like it. Josh Allen's my quarterback 1 on the year. He has been the quarterback 1 on the year. I watched Russell Wilson last year against the Rams, and my fantasy season fell apart. Josh Allen doesn't play well against the Patriots. He didn't earlier in the season. I know it was rainy and stuff, but I don't like it. Hostile territory. Game that he needs to win. I'm a Josh Allen guy and I'm a Bills guy, but I haven't seen him win a big game.
Not this year.
And that's what worries me, is that all his wins, I think he told me this stat on the show, that all his wins are against like below 500 playoff teams or something.
Except Kansas City.
Except Kansas City.
When Kansas City was going through its strut.
Yeah, when the media said Kansas City's done. Idiots. Yeah, if you have a backup, I got to see who your backup is, but I'd try to pivot off of Josh Allen. I got to see who your backup is, though.
I'd play Allen. I think he kind of delivered against New England, and that was in terrible weather conditions. I don't know the weather report in New England, but I'm sure I would have known.
I'll tell you this. If the Bills go out there and beat New England by like 10 and Josh Allen has a good game, they're getting bumped up in everybody's playoff rankings. But if they lose, they're in trouble.
I think that's a mistake.
Going on to the 425, so let's answer some questions. Let's start with...
Do the I was
going to say, let's do the Denver games with 2 Denver questions. So Denver Broncos at the Las Vegas Raiders. Teddy Bridgewater is out. Drew Lock is starting at quarterback. Darren Waller is doubtful to miss his 3rd straight game. I said to bench him anyway this week. I didn't like him coming back. So let's start here. We're going to start with Chris Gross's question. Ezekiel Elliott hasn't been putting up great numbers, and he's playing Washington. Would you sit him in favor of Melvin Gordon against the Raiders? Raiders have given up a lot of points against the running backs, but I have the same issue that I have with Javonte Williams. I don't know who's getting the touchdown in this game. There's going to be one. One of these running backs is getting the touchdown. I just don't know which one. On the flip side, the football team has been very, very good against running backs, surrendering the 4th least amount of points to running backs. So Zeke does not have a good matchup. And I've been talking about Ezekiel Elliott. I said last week, if he didn't have a good game against the Giants, worry about him. He had 52 yards and a touchdown. I mean, it wasn't great. He had 3 receptions. That's 3 fantasy points right there. Last time he faced Washington, though, he did have 9 fantasy points. I would play Zeke because I just think the Cowboys are a better football team. And I think that I'm just going to take the volume of Zeke. I don't trust either the Denver Broncos running backs at the same situation as the Rams.
I'm going with Zeke as well. Zeke, you just know when he's at the goal line within 5 yards, no one else in the league is guaranteed to get the ball more times than he is. So when you have that kind of guarantee on an offense that's going to put up numbers, they're going to force turnovers and put your team in a position to score. Zeke's very touchdown reliant, but it's more likely than not Zeke's going to find the end zone than most other running backs in the NFL. So I trust Zeke. I know his numbers haven't been great all year, but for fantasy purposes, he's still the RB7, and his ADP was about the RB5 to 7. So, I mean, he's delivering on where you expected him to be. You knew the struggle that you were going to have going into the year with Zeke. Some weeks you were going to be annoyed with his workload. You knew when you watched games you weren't going to see the great bursting running back, but he still manages 16 points per game on average in the 7th position in fantasy football. So it's good enough for a start.
All right. And Chris, I'm going to mess up this name. I'm sorry, but that Scroggins. I'm sorry if I butchered that. Start 1, Clyde EdwardsHelaire, Devin Singletary, or Melvin Gordon. Let's just cross out Singletary because I'm not playing over there. Let's play Clyde EdwardsHelaire. You drafted him pretty early. The Steelers defense has actually given up the 5th most fantasy points to fantasy running backs. Dalvin Cook ran all over them 2 weeks ago. Start Clyde EdwardsHelaire with confidence. I wouldn't trust Melvin Gordon. I'll trust Clyde EdwardsHelaire.
Yeah, I think Clyde kind of stepped back in and proved that he's a starter at least. So with that workload, I'm fine with it. I think Melvin Gordon, and it's kind of a toss-up between Melvin and Javonte on who you're going to get on which play. So I think Clyde clearly, at least they're showing that he's going to be the starter.
From Marquez Valdez, help! I lost Godwin, Eckler, and Kelsey. I'm so sorry for your losses, my friend. That's really tough. Half-point PPR: Pitts, Hunter Henry, Cole Kmet, or Azuma. Also start 2, Madison. Let's start with that first one. Well, you like Ozuma. I don't like Hunter Henry against the Bills, and I don't trust Cole Kmet against the Seahawks, so I'm going to start Kyle Pitts in this one, even though I've been kind of anti-Pitts this year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, even though I think Uzuma can deliver this week because of matchup, but I think Kyle Pitts, I mean, top 5 tight end on the season. Can't really question it. Just start your guy.
Start 2, Madison, Cordell Patterson, Rojo, Clyde EdwardsHelaire, or Miles Sanders. That's a really good running back room right there, man.
That's a
Clyde EdwardsHelaire and Miles Sanders have the best matchups. I'm not going to play Madison because I don't like his matchup and I think he needs a touchdown. I won't play Rojo because of his talent, and the Panthers have actually been a pretty decent defense against the run. Leaves me Cordell Patterson, Clyde EdwardsHelaire, Miles Sanders. I think I'm going to play Clyde EdwardsHelaire. He might be the one I rank as number 1 here. And then I'll play Cordell Patterson, although I do like Miles Sanders' matchup.
Cordell Patterson's my 1 here, and I cannot believe I'm saying that, like, based off where, start of the year.
Where we are at this point.
If you told me Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette wasn't playing, and you could pick between Cordell Patterson, Madison, Rojo, Clyde, and Miles, like, who would you take? I would feel disrespected that this was a question, but and now I can't believe I'm saying this out of my mouth. Cordell Patterson, in my opinion, is the clear 1 here.
Yeah.
And then I think it's a toss-up between Madison, Rojo, Clyde. That's tough because Madison always delivers, but going up against Aaron Donald's no treat for him. Rojo, I think, will clearly get the workload with all the injuries. I think they just try and win the game. And Clyde, he's so streaky, but
I feel like it's just a pick your poison situation. That's kind of where they're at.
I don't think it's a pick your poison. I think one of these guys, 2 or 3 of these guys are going to deliver. It's just, I think if you're
gonna kick yourself with whatever one you benched.
I think if you need upside, I'd play Madison. If you need floor, I'd play Clyde.
Okay, that's fair.
I think that's what I would go.
All right, let's go back to the Denver game. What's a start and a sit for you in this one?
I'm sitting everyone. I think you can play Melvin Gordon. You can play Javonte Williams, but they're not the most comfortable starts. On Vegas' side of the ball, Hunter Renfrow maybe, but he's going to be...
I'm worried about Hunter Renfrow. His worst game of the season, actually last week was the worst game of the season. And before that was against Denver, 6.6 fantasy points. That worries me a bit. I think they might shut him down today. And no Darren Waller either. Nobody to take those targets away. They could double him. I'm a bit worried about Hunter Renfrow. I have him in my 12-man league that actually the best team in the league, but I feel like I can't bench him. I have nobody else to play.
I'll tell you who I wouldn't play. I'll go play the Raiders defense. That's it. Raiders
Okay.
and Broncos defense,
Here you go.
because the Broncos have been an elite defense all year. You can very well argue they've been the number one defense in football. Here's their rankings against positions in fantasy. Against running back, they're number 6. Against wide receiver, they're number 8. Against quarterback, they're number 3. Against tight end, they're number 4. That means they're top 10 against every skill position on the field for fantasy purposes. So that's already a red flag when going up against the team. Can one of these guys deliver? Possibly, but it needs to be the big play. That Raiders offensive line is not holding up against that Denver front seven. Denver is one of the toughest outs in the league, and you win based off if they're turning the ball over or not. So,
yep. All right. Pittsburgh at Kansas City Chiefs, probably the game of the day, I think. It's probably America's game of the week. Travis Kelce's out due to COVID, did not clear protocols this morning. That's huge, huge, huge news. That's your second-round pick that's now not playing. This is why at the beginning of the year, people are kind of trying to figure out like who is vaccinated and who is not. I know it's a personal choice and stuff. I personally would rather people get vaccinated, but not just for fantasy purposes, but for fantasy purposes, I guess they legally probably couldn't put this, but it would have been nice to have like when you're drafting a little like icon, like vaccinated or not, because some of these stars that are here's an example. Tyreek, actually, I guess there's a chance he could be vaccinated or no. He could have just texted. I guess there's a chance he could be vaccinated and just tested positive twice.
Here's a good example. So last year's fantasy season, Zeke and Saquon Barkley were back-to-back fantasy picks. And everybody said it was a toss-up. You could take whichever you want. Their skill level was still relatively good. Were they coming off an off year? A little bit, but you knew they were still top 10-ish running backs. This was last year. The two of them, The two of them were heavily debated, and the fantasy experts put Zeke right above Saquon, and it was because they knew Zeke already had COVID and had the antibody, so it was less likely he was going to miss a game. So, there should be some sort of differentiator, because even the fantasy experts and analysts are looking at that for a real metric for whether you should draft them or not.
But here's an example. Tyreek Hill did clear COVID protocol. So I guess Kelce is vaccinated because he had a chance to clear COVID protocol. So he probably was tested positive twice, which is unfortunate for him. But Tyreek Hill did clear it, so Tyreek Hill's good to go. Pat Freiermuth for the Steelers is out. Who's your starting sit from this game, Nick?
Tyreek Hill clearly I think could finish very easily as the wide receiver 1 when it be his first time this year. So no shocker there. I don't know who the backup tight end is for Kelce. I think you could get away with him because the game plan is no longer going to be too high safety against the Chiefs. It's going to be how do we stop Tyreek Hill, and whatever else happens, our guys just got to cover it one-on-one. So I think Clyde I think is a good play with no Kelce there. I think you get away with a good play with him there.
I think I'm a bit worried about Claypool because the Chiefs defense has really turned it up the last few weeks, and the Claypool didn't deliver, or they didn't deliver last week. He didn't deliver against the Titans a couple weeks ago, so it worries me a little bit. Actually, you know what, Ball Glove, we're going to get into this. We'll save this question for the Miami game since we do have a Miami question in there. We'll save that for the Miami game. Now that'll be the last one we talk about. So 2 or 3 games, 2 more actually. Chicago Bears at my Seattle Seahawks. I was at the last game that the Bears actually went to Seattle. That's actually the only time I've been to Seattle. That was fun. They won like 23-0 or something like that. It was awesome. Nick Foles will start. Super Bowl champion Nick Foles will start. Justin Fields going to be the backup. His Fields banged up. Like I don't remember him getting hurt even.
He might be, but this is horrendous coaching staff. Come on.
How is Nagy still coaching?
Dude, the problem with Justin Fields is he's taking big shot after big shot against good front sevens. Seattle's defense is horrendous. This is the game you want him in. I don't care if Pete Carroll is the coach on the other side of the ball. Like, then you're just scared as a coach that you're going to get outcoached. Yeah. This is horrendous. There's no reason Nagy should have a job.
And Pete Carroll's been getting outcoached the whole year. But this game should be pretty fantasy friendly. The Seahawks defense has given up a lot of points to receivers. The Bears defense has given up a lot of points to receivers. My start of the week is going to be David Montgomery. Seahawks have given up 6 fantasy points to wide receivers, so David Montgomery should have a huge day. If you had David Montgomery last year in your playoffs, he probably won you a championship. I think today he gets you to your championship. So David Montgomery's my start. My sit, like I don't really have a sit in this game. Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, you play all three. You're playing Mooney, and you're playing David Montgomery. I think it's pretty fantasy friendly, honestly.
I think this is a little bit of a trap game. I think this game hits the under. I think both teams struggle to move the ball down the field. Even though I think, one of these guys is going to deliver a huge game, which is why I call it a trap, because you don't know which one's going to deliver, right? Like if it's DK or Tyler Lockett, you don't know, but the other one will probably struggle. I think Russell Wilson, you can play him this week. I think he gives you your fine week. But I don't think there's too much upside against the Bears defense, just because Seattle hasn't proven that they can move the ball well, and Russell Wilson hasn't proven to be a top fantasy quarterback since the injury. So
yep.
I'm a little concerned for Russ in this game as well. On the other side of the ball, I don't trust that coaching staff to trust their guys. So the only guy I really trust starting is Darnell Mooney.
All right.
I'm David Montgomery.
Sunday Night Football, Washington football team with the Dallas Cowboys. Antonio Gibson has a toe injury. I don't think he's practiced this week. If he did, it was once. Game time decision. That's really tough because
and it's a 4:00 slot.
It's the night game. It's Sunday Night Football.
Oh, it is. Oh my God, that's even worse.
Yeah, I don't think you could play Gibson. I don't think you could do it.
If you are, you better have the backup stash. I don't know if McKissick's back.
McKissick's out, so I don't even know who the backup is. I think McKissick's on IR. So
I'll take
Tony Pollard, maybe. Like it might be Tony. Like I don't know who who else you would play unless you have like one of the Dolphins running backs tomorrow.
I'm gonna
check. You trust one of the Dolphins running backs, but I would again. I need to see who your running backs are, but I think I would try to pivot off of Antonio Gibson.
The backup is Jarrett Patterson.
Yeah, I'm going to try to pivot off Antonio Gibson tonight. He's probably the guy I'm not playing this week. I guess I'll just play. Amari Cooper had a comment the other day about the Cowboys offense needing to get fired up, so I could see Cooper having a big day. Usually when a player makes that kind of comment, they kind of go out there and have a big day. It's like when you play Madden and your receiver's like, hey, coach, you going to help me out? And then you got to get like 200 yards or something, and one of us just feeds them to get the X factor. So
I love the
Dallas
little friendly rivalry going on. I'm not sure if you saw it. Micah Parsons and Dak have bets on every game of whether the defense will get more turnovers or the offense more touchdowns. So that's two awesome. Teams that are hell of confident, awesome. Right in their cores. Like that's a good competition to have between yourselves. That's a good team. I know people don't like McCarthy. That team is incredibly well coached.
That's awesome. You have a start and sit for this game.
I mean, you're starting your Dallas guys. You're not starting your Washington guys. I don't know what much more.
What about Terry McLaurin?
McLaurin delivered a goose egg and went 0 for 4 before the injury. So you can play McLaurin, but I was confident he'd burn Trayvon Diggs the first time they played, and he did not deliver. So
yeah,
I still think you can trust you. You cannot trust him in this matchup. But Terry, I think, is a better wide receiver than Trayvon as a corner. I know it's a bold statement because of the interceptions, but I mean, Diggs even blew big touchdowns against Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne. Yeah. So Trayvon Diggs plays that risky style of football, and Terry McLaurin's a great route runner. So you don't know.
All right, Monday Night Football, Miami Dolphins at the New Orleans Saints. Let's get to this question from Ball Glove Bazzer. If you like Cordell Patterson against Detroit, do you also like Russell Gage over Jalen Waddle in New Orleans? I don't. Nick's going to like it. I don't actually, because the Lions have been pretty tough against wide receivers. Waddle's going up against the Saints that have given up the second most fantasy points to wide receivers, and they're pretty banged up. I think they have like 5 or 6 guys on defense on the COVID list. I'm not sure how the corners are, but I would play Waddle this week. I think that Tua could get a pretty nice stat line. The Saints also do struggle against rushing quarterbacks, so I would play Tua this week. I would play Tua, and I'd play Jalen Waddle. I would not play any Miami running back, though the Saints have been very, very stout against the run. Oh, and Ian Book's also starting for the Saints, by the way. I should mention that.
So Russell Gage over the last 4 weeks has delivered the 3rd most targets in football, is averaging 18 fantasy points per game, and has been pretty phenomenal for those 4 games. Over those same 4 games, Cordell Patterson, double-digit touches, averaging 70 yards on the ground, averaging 2.5 catches per game, and has given you, let me just do the math real quick, about 15 fantasy points per game. you could play both of them very confidently against that Detroit defense. I would absolutely start Russell Gage over Jalen Waddle. On that back end for the Lions, there is nobody that can hang with Russell Gage in that hot streak. Marshawn Lattimore, who is a Pro Bowler this year, is going to be following Jalen Waddle most of the game.
So my start for this game is Tua. I think Tua has a nice stat line against the Saints, and my sit's going to be those Miami running backs. I want no part of Gaskin, no part of who's the other one? What's his name? Duke Johnson. I want no part of them.
The only, I don't want to say it, but I think I'm going to. I don't think I'd play anyone from this game.
Kamara?
I really don't. I think
Kamara.
Yeah, I'd play Kamara. That's it. I don't think I'd touch any Dolphin this week. Not after they just came off the shutout against the greatest quarterback of all time. I don't know.
Yeah, but they play him so well. That's a matchup thing. It's a weird wonky matchup.
Okay, but Tua, I can't do it. I can't.
It's a weird wonky matchup thing. Jalen Hurts had like 35 points against the Saints like 4 or 5 weeks ago. He ran all over them.
Yeah, but that's different. That's a mobility thing.
But the Tua's mobile though.
I don't trust. I think Miami has a horrendous week right here.
All right, we'll see what happens.
I think they blow their playoff chances right here. I would love it. I would love to see that.
Final question of the day. Joe says, is there any way I can remove Cooper Kupp from my opponent's lineup? Joe, I'm not telling you to commit a crime, but if there's a way that you could either A, find some type of hacking software to hack into your opponent's phone, or B, go to your opponent's house, maybe have his mom get you his phone or something like that. I don't know. Find a way to get his phone and then switch it out. Those are the only 2 ways I could see it being possible. I wish I had the ability to do that with my opponents, but that's the show for this week, guys. Hopefully you guys win your week 16 matchup, your semifinal matchup. Hopefully we see you guys in the championship next week. I'm hoping for the best for all of you. The next time you hear from us is this week. We'll do Friday. We'll drop our show on Friday, New Year's Eve edition of the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Get you ready for the new year. Get you ready for your championship week. Nick, best of luck to you. Best of luck to your Jets. I'll let you say anything else. I'll give you the floor right now. Anything else you'd like to say?
Good luck. Thank you to everybody that came out. Make sure you keep coming next week. We hope to see all you guys get that W.
Yeah, thank you guys for the questions today. Good luck again. Hope you all had a Merry Christmas. Talk to you real soon.